Everyone. I hope. Oh, good. All right. So we got the recording here. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, yes, this is being recorded, and I'm also happy to send a PDF version of our slides today. So with that being said, you all got a little introduction of who I am, but I'm also a chat box person. So if you have questions or concerns, go ahead and throw that in the chat. We will have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. But go ahead and throw it in the chat even now if you would like. If you have a crock pot or you have an Instapot lingering around in your kitchen right now, I know for me, I'm a crock pot person, but I know Instapots are totally taking off. Instant pots. I want to call it Instapot, but it's an instant pot. But yeah, if anyone has that in your kitchen right now, or you're tried and true loyalist with the crock pot, somebody here at our Giant says crock pots are the OG. So I had to laugh about that. But we're going to be talking about how you can up your game. Even though we're in the warmer weather months, I still think that there's some things that you can learn about how you can do a little bit better. Maybe some people use these all year round. So yeah, I'm very much so an interactive person. Don't be shy. I know this is interactive. I won't be calling your name out or anything like that. Or I know it's being recorded, so sometimes people get shy. So I promise you, I will not call your name out if you do throw something in the chat box. I don't embarrass people, but I do love that face-to-face or that quote unquote face-to-face interaction. But if not, if that's not something that you're comfortable with, that's totally fine. We will still have some time for Q&A at the end. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and let's jump in. Oh, and before I mention that, I did want to say that, Giant has a team of 10 registered dietitians and nutritionists spanning the whole greater Washington, D.C. area. Yes, somebody has chocolate fondue on the mind. I love that. So yeah, there's lots of uses for our Instaponic crock pot. So excited to talk to you about all of that good stuff. So anyway, back to what I was saying with our services. We do span the greater Washington, D.C. area. We offer online webinars, consultations. We do in-person events now. So I'm happy to share with you all of our services. But yeah, if you didn't know that Giant has a team of registered dietitians, now you know, and I'm happy to share with you some other services that you can totally take advantage of. All right, so let's go ahead and get started for today. On the agenda, I'm going to give you a brief history lesson. Hopefully you don't find it too boring. I love history. I like learning about how did these appliances even come to be about, or who invented them. So it's kind of nice to know that we benefit from the creativity of other people. And then I will talk to you about the keynote differences between the crock pot versus Instant Pot. And then lastly, we'll talk about recipe inspiration. I know some people, they get these appliances, especially with the Instant Pot. It's got a lot of bells and whistles, and they're probably intimidated, or they're like, great, what do I do with that? I know that was my first experience when I looked at an Instapot and I was like, what do you do with all that? So I'm going to share with you what you can do, all the nice fancy things. And then maybe that's something that you want to add on your holiday wish list, or maybe a birthday wish list, or it doesn't even need to be any kind of holiday. It can just be your next treat that you want to indulge in. All right, so I'm just going to quickly glance at the notes here. So I typically don't like to look at my notes, but I think that this is interesting. I learned something in doing some research here, and so did my colleagues. Put this stuff together here. So the crock pot story began during the 19th century in Vilna, which is a Jewish neighborhood in the city of Vilnius, Lithuania. It's once known as the Jerusalem in the north. Vilna attracted a thriving community of writers and academics, and their Jewish families anticipated the Sabbath by preparing a stew of meat, beans, and vegetables on Fridays before nightfall. So with their ingredients in place, people took their crocks to the town's bakeries, specifically to the still hot ovens that would slowly cook overnight. So by morning, the low and slow residual heat would result in a stew known as coolant. If I'm not pronouncing that right, by all means, go ahead and throw it in the chat. I don't know if any of you history buffs out there know this better than I do, but anyway, I think that's kind of cool. Where did this tradition even start in the first place? So someone by the name of Irving Nachumson learned of this tradition from a relative. So in their household, the slow cooker was a solution to summer heat, allowing the family to prepare meals without turning on the oven. Nachumson applied for the patent on May 21st, 1936, and it was granted on January 23rd, 1940. There we go. Let me try that one more time. I have it in parentheses. Nachumson's A slow cooker went on the market more than a decade later. So during the 1950s, that's kind of when it went out on the market, but it rose in popularity in the 70s. So crockpot is essentially a slow cooker. If you've used them interchangeably, it's basically the same thing. It's a time saver. It's one of those set it and forget it instruments. It's good for soups, stews, and basically slow cooking meats. All right, so that's the history of the crock pot. Let's move on to the Instant Pot. Robert Wang invented the Instant Pot. Wang, he's also a PhD holder in computer science, and he has a background in artificial intelligence. Works out quite well because this is a fancy little piece of equipment. So it's thought of basically, it's got the crock pot idea. It's a slow cooker, so the mentality is a slow cooker. But basically it came about in the second half of the 20th century, or the idea came about with like as more working parents came about, more women have been joining the workforce. So basically he came up with this idea of a machine or something to be able to cook a full meal during the day while the entire family is out of the house. Kind of like that idea. So our cultural norms have changed since then. So it took Wang about roughly 18 months to develop the first iteration of the Instant Pot. So real quick turnaround with that, including finding a manufacturer, ironing out the kinks of the design, and tweaking the firmware and algorithms before releasing the first product on Amazon in October of 2010. So Instapot in its newer form debuted in 2010, and it's basically a multi-cooker. So it's simply an electric pressure cooker with many functions, which does set it apart from many other kitchen appliances. So it's basically, a one-stop shop. It's a rice cooker. It's a slow cooker, pressure cooker. It also can make yogurt. So it does a number of things. I'll also share with you all some of the other functions that it has. So if you're brand new to the whole concept of it, it's basically, it serves as a pressurized environment inside the pot. So it cooks food, or basically any food, much quicker than an oven or a stove top, or basically anything that you would put, cook on top of the stove. And you can learn a lot more about how, the technology or what, happens inside an Instapot online. But basically, if you look at the pressure cooker, basically the manual, this is the pressure cook. That button, that's what you're most likely going to use the most. So the temperature, the pressure cooks, or the pressure level, and the cook times, that's basically the most controlled environment. And those are the operational keys and the settings and all that kind of stuff, like I said, that you're going to be using most often. So, basically with all the functions that I had mentioned, I won't go into a whole lot of detail about which settings that you're going to want to utilize. And by all means, you're more than welcome to throw in the chat if you use your Instapot for something in particular more often than not. Like for instance, I hear some people say, oh yeah, I use my Instapot to, make rice quite a bit. Because we use a lot of, rice dishes in my family, or some people use it for meat, especially if they're, short on time. But one of the things that the Instapot can do is for soups and broths, it can actually bring soups to a slow simmer, which is actually pretty nice. And even for meatless soups, you can use something on a lower mode just to kind of help. You don't have to worry about that meat cooking. It can actually just kind of keep everything nice and warm. All right, so for meats and stews, this is the best, way to get that meat nice and tender. Like I said, it's a pressure cooker. So when you're short on time, it uses that, lower time frame cooking method, but also pressurized cooking. So you're using that less time, actually less energy too. So some people have invested in the Instapot, because they care more about the environmental use of it. So less time, less resources, still cooks your meat or cooks your ingredients all together. In less time. Sorry, I did not mean to transition my slides yet. I'm still following along with some of those notes here, just kind of showing you all the functionality of it. So yeah, it seems to be, for those who are a little more environmentally conscious, they do like the Instapot for those reasons, because it cooks just as well with the less use of resources, or less time, less energy That's what I'm looking for. That's the word. Okay. Beans and chili also, program for that. So that's kind of nice. So you're getting that soft bean texture, but you're not getting an overly soft, mushy bean texture. Cake. How cool is that? I don't know if anybody's used cake for their pressure cooker, or I'm sorry, Instant Pot. Go ahead and throw it in the chat if you have. But actually, the Instant Pot can actually create a very moist, dense cake, or you can use different pressure mode to make a lighter moist cake, which is kind of cool. So if you have a preference with your cake, I know for me, I like more dense cakes. So I would definitely take advantage of that. You can even use cheesecake, or you can even make cheesecake out of your Instant Pot. How cool is that? Eggs, you can definitely use that. So you can cook a large batch of eggs, which is cool. I did not know that. Sauteing. So what I love about the Instant Pot, I don't have one, by the way, but I've heard really wonderful things about it. Like I said, I'm tried and true to my crock pot. I'm just very loyal to it. But what is cool about the Instant Pot is that you can saute your veggies, and then you can throw other ingredients. It's kind of like a one-stop shop. I cannot say I do that with my crock pot, and I don't know if anyone can commiserate or agree with me on that, that a lot of recipes I have to pull out a separate pan, and I have to saute my veggies in there, get them a little bit cooked down, or kind of marinate some flavors together. Then I transfer them to the pot, and then I transfer other things. You don't have to worry about doing that with the Instant Pot. So I know I always do things a harder way for myself, but anyway, nonetheless, I do feel that that's one of the incentivizing pieces with the Instant Pot. So anyway, one of these days I'll get on board, but I'm just, like I said, very loyal to my Instant Pot, or I'm sorry, my crock pot. So one of these days, maybe I'll help two appliances. Right now, space is an issue too. I know that's also an issue for some people. They don't want to load up on all these appliances in their kitchen. So that's probably they just choose one and they stick with it. All right. So like I said, the slow cooker aspect, that's the nice part, is that even though it is kind of a slow cooker, you can still get that slow cooker aspect, that tenderized meat. Nothing's overcooked, nothing's overly dry, but in less amount of time. So you've got that slow cooker, but because of that pressurized cooking piece, it doesn't take as much time, like how an ordinary slow cooker would utilize. All right, rice, I've already talked about that. You can use, even those whole grains as well, in addition to the white rice. Okay, and then, like I said, those multi-grains, the brown rice, white rice. If anyone has ever cooked with whole grains, especially on stovetop, they can take quite a bit of time. I actually just cooked with farro not too long ago. And farro takes a long time. I don't know if anyone has cooked with that, but it took upwards of an hour. And then brown rice, certain brown rice recipes, it takes 45 minutes. So the pressure cooker aspect of the Instant Pot does help expedite that process. So that's always good. Porridge, I thought this is cool, or even oatmeal. This is nice. Now you can do the exact same thing with slow cooker. So this is kind of nice if you're hosting brunch or you're having guests over. It's kind of nice to have a big crock pot or big Instant Pot full of these ingredients, but that's kind of nice. And then even steaming vegetables or seafood or fish, especially seafood and fish that can overcook very easily. It's very easy to dry those out, or, you can have a tough piece of meat. And so I do appreciate that the Instant Pot will help you have that setting just so that you time it perfectly right, so you don't have an overcooked piece of meat. Sterilizing, this is also pretty interesting too. So for moms, if they're looking to sterilize baby bottles or even jars, you don't even have to be a mom. I think even in light of COVID, we are getting a little more serious about how we sanitize and sterilize things. So jars, utensils, all of that. So you can throw those in there, and that heat and that pressure, all of that, it forms as a source, or it is a source of sterilization. So that's pretty interesting. One of the modes can also pasteurize dairy products. So if you're wondering, well, how can you make yogurt out of that sterilization or that mode can actually help form yogurt, which is also pretty cool. If you're a canner or you're interested in becoming a canner, I know with the price of food going up, food prices, all of that, everything seems like it's going up, which it is. Some people are actually dabbling in gardening a little more, or canning. stocking up for the winter, even now, since we've got produce that is becoming a little more abundant. So this might be the time to, once again, bust out that crock pot, stock up on those freezer meals, get your Instapot out, whatever you want. Even though, like I said, it's not winter, you might want to start stocking up your freezer and all that. Get a jump start on it. So some people are dabbling in the canning aspect and everything. Okay, so we got somebody who says doesn't use an Instapot. Can't check in between. Yes, exactly. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I have a couple tips on, it's difficult to check on the Instapot because you lock in that pressure cooker piece. But I do have a slide that does mention that. So hopefully that does answer your question. But thank you so much for throwing that in the chat. I do appreciate it, because more to come on that information. All right, and then the last functionality with the Instapot is that it can just keep things warm. Same thing with the Crock-Pot. There's settings with that as well. But, keeping temperatures nice and warm, keeping it out of the danger zone, that's also something that is very important. You want your food to be nice and warm, nice and hot, ready to go. All right, so now that I gave you all a history lesson and a crash course on the differences between the two, is it really worth it? Is it worth the investment? Is it worth buying? Well, buying one is a commitment. So you really just have to weigh out what's important to you. What are the benefits? Like I said, what's important to me is space. So unfortunately, I would like to have both on hand, but I don't have the space for both of them. Tiny kitchens, you got to pick and choose which one. And like I said, the crock pot really just is something that I really enjoy. And what I think is interesting, I don't know if I did that annotation or not, but let me see. I'll disable the annotation, so no more markups and everything. Maybe that was me. But anyway, so it's funny that somebody mentioned that the crock pot is kind of good for morning people, because it is something that you do have to set it and forget it. And so usually you have to carve out a little bit of time in the morning, throw all your ingredients together, and then you let everything cook all day. But the Instant Pot is also good for afternoon people. So when you rush in the door, maybe you get through your work day, you can start assembling all your ingredients and throw everything together, because sometimes, like I said earlier, certain recipes only need about 4 hours to cook, especially if you need meat or something like that to pressurize and cook. So it actually works for later afternoon, especially if you're having a later dinner or something like that. So it really depends on the person, but I think that either one is worth the investment. So it really just depends where your priorities are. All right, so the easiest meal that you will make this week, I'm going to give you a how-to guide and what you want to stock up on, and we'll just go from there. So if you have a slow cooker, really, if you have an Instant Pot, these are some staples that you probably want to have on hand. There's a ton of recipe ideas out there, places to get started. But if you want, have some chicken broth or some kind of broth on hand, because you are going to need that moisture, whether you have a crock pot or an Instant Pot. Aromatics are also really important because they're going to add tons of flavor, but they're not going to add the saturated fat or the calories. I love cooking with garlic and onions. These are automatically going to boost up that flavor. Then, of course, you're going to have the whole grains. You're going to add something. Now, keep in mind that the ratio of whole grain to liquid, that might be something that you're probably going to have more liquid, because whole grains can soak up that liquid. So you're definitely going to need that piece included. Somebody said, someone had asked, how do you sterilize our utensils? I'm not entirely sure how. I think the instructions would come with the Instant Pot, because like I said, I'm not sure. I don't have an Instant Pot. I know that Instant Pot has an instruction manual on how to exactly do that. It is included on how to sterilize bottles, utensils, probably some, throwing in a certain amount of liquid and then setting the mode. Whether it's low, high, or normal, it will tell you which mode to set it on so that pressure starts to get incorporated, as well as that heat. I would imagine it's high pressure, high heat, because that's usually what is required to sterilize. And then, what utensils, it could be, forks, spoons, whatever you would like. So great question. I don't know if that's the best answer, because like I said, I don't have one and I don't use it, but I do know that is absolutely available in their instruction manual, and you can also find it online. That's the beauty of online information. You can find it at the click of a button. And then you had asked, could you use wine instead? I don't know if you're asking about sterilizing or if you're using that instead of liquid or flavoring. I'm going to go with flavor, but yeah, you definitely can for flavor or just liquid and everything. But wine is a great way to add that flavor. And it does cook out. The alcohol will cook out. So you don't have to worry about getting intoxicated with your meal. So I absolutely love adding some wine. Check and see. Sometimes all you need is a little splash. Like you don't want to add a cup of wine in place of chicken broth, because then your dish is going to be super, super strong. A little bit goes a long way. But if you want to, maybe add half a cup or a quarter of a cup or something like that, that will definitely enhance the flavor. If I'm not answering your question correctly, that's okay, because we will add, so we definitely have some time built in for our session for Q&A at the end. So I have no problem going back and re-answering that if that was not what you were seeking. So, but I do appreciate the questions that are being thrown in the chat, because maybe that will spark some other people to ask some questions. I'm a chat box person. So, okay. So yeah, basically some staples that we want, beans, definitely add that bulk. They add that protein, they add that fiber, also add that flavor as well. And then even adding some vegetables or having the frozen veggies on hand are great as well. Okay, so step number one, or tip number one, is just to pick your protein. And it doesn't always have to be meat-based. It can be, but you can add plant-based sources like beans or even tofu. You can do seafood. It always depends on the type of recipe. So just to, keep in mind, cooking times will vary. Things might need to be added at different times, but it is nice that you still have that versatility. So tips for using the crock pot: you will want to spray the liner. So before you add anything to the crock pot, spray that liner, just because when it's cooking all day long, like 8 hours, stuff can really build up on that side. I know that's happened to me before. I have not sprayed, and all day long, the liquid has just really stuck to the sides. And then you're left scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing later on. Just means more time doing dishes, more time scrubbing. I don't like that. I like easy kitchen cleanup. That's something that speaks to me. Preheat. So when you're preparing your meal, don't forget, if you can, preheat your slow cooker if that's an option. Sometimes that's not. So don't worry about it if it's not. I know my slow cooker does not have a preheat option. Try to avoid the frozen items, and that's just because it's going to offset the time. So if you throw something that's been frozen directly into your crock pot and something's required to cook for 8 hours, it actually might extend that a little bit longer. It might actually need to cook for an extra 2 hours or something like that. The other thing too is just consider trimming fat off of meat, browning the meat before, just to add a little richer flavor to the final product. Make sure that you are layering properly. So if you're cooking with something hard or raw vegetables that require a longer cooking time, you do want to layer them at the bottom of the pot, where they're just going to have that most exposure. They can have the most exposure to that liquid. All right, keep it low and slow. That's what the whole point of slow cookers were designed for. So you don't have to worry about that, but just make sure that you are following the proper settings. So when it comes to cooking meat, just opt for low setting, or a low setting whenever possible. Low and slow, especially when you're using those tougher cuts of meat, because that's going to allow that time for that tenderization. The tougher cuts of meat, they need that time, that moisture. Otherwise, if you cook something on high heat really rapidly, it's going to be very, very tough and not very enjoyable. Beans also prefer a low and slow method. Just because you don't want them to become really, really mushy. If they cook on high heat really fast, they're going to become very mushy really fast. Vegetable-based dishes, they can handle a little bit of a higher setting. It does depend on the type that we're talking about, with a reduced time. Okay, so kind of going back to that question that was thrown in the chat, resist the urge to remove the lid and peek at your meal. Now, Instant Pots, you have that locking setting. Actually, my crock pot that I have has the exact same thing. You lock it in to allow all that heat, all that moisture to stay in. I know I'm always tempted to just check in on my meat. I think we have that tendency to want to stir everything together. We think, oh, it's not getting coated. Oh, all those flavors are not blending. But it's just one of those things that you kind of have to let the machine do its thing on its own. But opening a slow cooker or opening that Instapot is going to let that heat and moisture escape, and it actually slows down that cooking process. But once you put the lid on, leave it there until your dish reaches the low end of the recipe's cooking range. So if you've let everything cook for like 3.5 hours and you're, allowed 4 hours, then you can kind of take a little peek at the end. I know I do that. Usually by then the flavors, the smell, the aromas have developed in the kitchen. So, it's been cooking. But yeah, that's the one tempting thing that I have to say with my crock pot is that I want to peek really bad, want to make sure the meat's cooking through, want to make sure everything's, running as planned. But when you open up that lid, you're just letting everything, escapes. Kind of like how we shouldn't be opening up our oven doors, when we want to check on cookies, we want to check on, whatever's cooking in the oven. We really shouldn't be opening up that door because we're just letting heat and everything escape. So, all right, hopefully that answered the question. If not, we'll go back and make sure all questions are answered thoroughly and properly. All right, so add very tender vegetables towards the end of cooking. So if you have something very tender, you're gonna want them to hold their shape, hold their integrity. So we're gonna add them closer to the end, at the end of the cook time, which kind of goes back to the previous point. Quickly lift the lid with whatever the cooking time is, or however much time those vegetables need to cook. Usually it's about like the last 30 to 45 minutes. All right, what about the too much liquid dilemma? So if you end up having too much, let's say your dish is really soupy, you want it to be more stew-like, you want it to be a little bit thicker, here's how you can fix this. You can remove the lid and continue to cook your dish uncovered, and you can crank up the heat a little bit on high to kind of help reduce that liquid. So you're just basically letting the liquid cook off a little bit. Let's say, for instance, you have a large cut of meat that's cooking in with that liquid. You can take that meat out, put it on a separate platter, and allow more surface area to be exposed so that liquid can continue to cook out. So you just do the same. You let that meat be removed, because you don't want that meat to burn. You don't want that meat to get overcooked and then get really, really tough and everything. That kind of defeats the whole purpose. All right, so here's how to avoid some of those top Instant Pot mistakes. I know I'm still stuck on this slide. I was just trying to, avoid or try to figure out where I can sneak in some of these tips. So here are some of the top Instant Pot mistakes that people make. Not checking that the Instant Pot is sealed enough, okay? And then the other one, so, make sure that you're reading the owner's manual. I think most people know it's got that lock setting and everything. I know I do that with my, crock pot. It's pretty foolproof, but, just double checking, make sure that everything is sealed, because you don't want that heat to escape. You want everything to steam and let it do its thing. That's what it's meant for. The other thing is not using enough liquid. So here's I think something else that came up in the chat box. Your Instant Pot needs liquid to work. So if there's not enough liquid, your Instant Pot won't be able to create enough steam to build that pressure. So I think somebody threw in the chat box, well, how do we know how much? I don't know. It probably depends on what, like the sterilization question was a great question. So I can't speak to that one, but here's a tip. About 1 cup is the minimum amount of liquid. It depends. So I don't know about sterilization, but generally speaking, 1 cup is pretty much the general amount that, most recipes call for. So if you're cooking a recipe, that will absorb water like rice or like beans, you might even need more. So it just depends. So just be aware, make sure you follow that recipe, you know how much liquid to use. If you have a mishap and your Instant Pot is sealing and your Instant Pot has already been sealed, you need a little more liquid. You can also try, adding a little bit more. You can, take the lid off or something like that. You can look through and check on it and everything and just see if you need to add a little bit more. But that's why it is really important that you read the recipe, you follow those instructions, and everything, because that's what the machine, I keep calling it a machine, that's what the appliance was designed for. It kind of knows that perfect ratio. Okay, another mistake that people make is overfilling the Instant Pot. So your Instant Pot should have a line on the inner pot to show the maximum amount of food that you can cook at once. There's a reason for that line, because if you overfill it, it's going to affect the pressure that's going to build up inside. So you might end up with an overly mushy meal, or maybe things aren't thoroughly cooked through, it didn't cook properly. So, you definitely want to make sure that, you're following that. And then also an overly full Instant Pot can lead to a clogged pressure release knob because the food and the liquid can get sucked up inside. So just play it safe. You don't want to damage that appliance too, because you spent money on it or somebody else spent money on it. So just keep it, keep it clean, keep it nice, treat it with respect. So just make sure that, yeah, you're not overfilling it. Stay on the safe side. Don't fill that pot over that 2/3 full line, and, stay below that half full foods line. Or I guess there's a halfway point, so that foods allow that time to expand, like beans and lentils. The other common mistake that people make is that they use the wrong pressure release method. So again, follow the instructions. It's pretty foolproof. But when you're using an Instant Pot recipe, it should specify a quick pressure release or a natural release button. So, just stick to it. So again, if you're following a recipe or you're sterilizing something, it's going to let you know which button to hit. So just stick to it. We know how handy a quick pressure release is. So, if you're impatient though, and you want to get dinner quickly on the table, just make sure, you just kind of budget for that time and everything. But a quick release is a great way just to kind of hurry up, try to get a quick meal and everything. But like, for instance, delicate foods like fish or steamed veggies, if you use that button on your Instant Pot, you might end up with something that's like, overly mushy or overly cooked or something like that. So, okay, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Okay, always follow the recipe instructions, like I said. So, all right, so I know this slide is a little bit wonky because I was talking about common mistakes. I was talking about some tricks of the trade. But, if we do want to pick our balanced recipes, or we want to, try to add to our crock pot meal, it's always good to just pick a lean protein, have a whole grain represented. And it doesn't even need to be cooked in the pot necessarily. It can be made on the side. I know I do that. For example, sometimes I cook spaghetti sauce, which is a lot, or some kind of meat sauce. It cooks a big batch, or chili, for instance. So yeah, I'm not able to throw all the ingredients in that whole thing of sauce, but I make sure to have, something that brings balance to my meal on the side. For example, salad, or maybe I'll do whole wheat pasta or something like that. So what you see there. Okay, the other thing is just make sure that you're packing, lots of produce. Like I said, I'm not eating an entire thing of spaghetti sauce, but I'm making sure that I'm sneaking in my produce whenever I can. That's why having those steamed veggies, or having, a bag of frozen veggies on hand is really important. Or you can even have canned. One of the things that we always say, fresh, frozen, and canned, all forms will fit in terms of the produce department. Which is surprising. I think a lot of people think, well, what about cans? Isn't that where all the sodium is? Yes, you do want to watch out for added sodium, but just try to get no salt added or low sodium varieties. It depends, what the recipe is calling for. Sometimes sodium, it does add a little bit of extra flavor, but just like I said, you might want to season to taste, or salt to taste. So it doesn't hurt to get the lower salt varieties. In fact, that's what a dietitian will tell you. Get the low salt, better to err on the side of caution, and then just season to taste. The nice part with our taste buds is that they do adapt. So, you might actually find that the less you're cooking with salt and the more you're playing around with flavors, which brings me to my next slide here in just a minute, you'll find that you actually appreciate other forms of flavor rather than just automatically going for the salt shaker, going for, finding ways to add that sodium. So, all right. And then, like we said, don't forget about that liquid. That's really important too. And, if you can, try to find low sodium, or try to, find ways to make it healthy-ish if you can. All right, tip number 5 is adding that flavor. It's super important when you're cooking with an Instant Pot or crock pot, because this does give opportunities for those flavors to marry one another and in conjunction with that heat and that pressure. So this is really going to develop, and you can totally have fun with this. There's a lot of shortcuts out there, like the chili seasoning, or slow cooker sauce packets where you just dump everything together. I do appreciate that. Now, again, speaking of sodium, you're probably thinking, well, I've seen these in the aisles and the sodium content is really high. And yes, I would say I've seen them too. They're pretty high. Well, it depends what we're talking about. Some are respectable with the sodium content. Some of them are, I would say, yeah, they can be pretty high. I mean, what we're talking about is a sauce packet, and it's going to have sodium because it's got to maintain its shelf stability, and sodium is a preservative. But one of the things we like to say as registered dietitians are, what can you add to make it a little healthier? Maybe not necessarily take it away. For example, or what opportunity can you make just to make it a little healthier? So if yes, I have my favorite slow cooker meal, or I have a simmer sauce packet, and yes, it's a little higher in sodium, could I add more veggies to my meal? Or could I swap out whole grains instead of refined grains? Or could I swap out leaner protein instead of, maybe another higher fat protein? Could I add fresh fruit for dessert instead of having something else? Could I add in more steps to my day or more physical activity? So you see where I'm going, where it really might actually end up being a swap opportunity or a way to add if I know that something might have just a little more sodium. So we're not perfect eaters. We're not expecting other people to be. And, at the end of the day, if you're getting dinner on a table and it's healthy-ish, that's an accomplishment. That's a success story. Because sometimes for some people, getting dinner on the table is a challenge in and of itself. Okay, so yeah, like I said, going back to the flavor, this is actually a fun chance to play around with things that you might really appreciate, you might really love. I love, like I said, cooking with, something that's slow and steady all day long, because man, those flavors really do develop, and there's a richness. And I know we had just talked about wine here, how, just adding like a splash of wine really just adds that depth. It adds layers and layers of that flavor and that richness to your meal. There's a reason why sometimes they tell you, if you sear meat in a pan before and you scrape up those bits, those brown bits, there's a reason they tell you to do that. It's because those brown bits have such strong, intense flavor that you definitely want to add that to your Instant Pot, or well, you don't have to worry about adding it to your Instant Pot because it's already built in, but you definitely want to do that to your crock pot. So anyway, flavor is super important. All right, so let me talk to you about how to get some inspiration. So you're like, yes, I know all the benefits of cooking with my crock pot, or now I have some ideas, or definitely got that history lesson. Where do I start? Well, you have access to a plethora of resources, and one of them being at, Giant, we have our Savory magazine, which you can pick up free in store. However, not every issue is going to have crock pot inspired recipes. Definitely not this time of year, because it's summertime, and we're going to be featuring recipes about grilling, stuff that you can, yeah, pretty much is grill season. So we're going to have a lot of summertime dishes, a lot of produce and all that stuff. So you're not going to see a whole lot with the Instant Pot and slow cooker. But that's why I really like our online database. It's called Recipe Center at giantfood.com. And I am going to throw that in our chat box at the end. The only thing is I can't talk and type at the same time, but I love our Recipe Center online database because it archives every recipe that was ever created. So I'm more partial to that. And so you can literally type in the word Instant Pot. And look, you'll get a bunch of hits of all the Instant Pot recipes that Giant's ever created, many of which are super simple, just a few ingredients, throw it all together. Or if you have a slow cooker like me, you can type in the word slow cooker or crock pot. You get all the recipes that they've created, which I think is very, very helpful. And don't forget about some of these one-off apps and recipe centers like in Pinterest. I almost said interest, Pinterest, or there's I'm trying to think of some other ones. There's Cooking Light. I think there's other kinds of resources out there, but Pinterest and Savory are my go-to places for all my recipe inspiration. I also am old school and I like crock pot cookbooks. I literally have something called Slow Cooker Revolution. The whole book, cover to cover, is just all crock pot recipes. It covers breakfast, sides, desserts. I'm amazed at how many recipes can come from just, one appliance. So you got tons of resources that you have available. So if you need a couple, recipe ideas, I think that this is actually pretty cool. A pork ragu. Now, if you don't eat pork, you can always swap it out, make that swap opportunity. You could do a lean cut of beef. You could do, maybe some other type of, plant-based alternative. But yeah, this is an Instant Pot recipe where it's going to have multiple functions. You saute the onions and the carrots and the garlic. It also calls for that dry red wine. So think about that depth of flavor that's going to develop. crushed tomatoes, chicken broth, salt, pepper, oregano. You're going to throw that pork shoulder in there. It's going to pressure cook. The total time takes 2 hours. So here's once again why some people, when they need a quick and easy dinner solution and they get through the door or they sign off from work, whatever, work from home or work from office is looking very different for a lot of people. Maybe it's a hybrid like my approach here these days, where they need something quick and easy. And they need it ready in 2 hours or less. This is a nice little solution. So okay. And again, these are Savory Magazine recipes. So this is something that's nice in springtime-ish, perfect for this weather. So again, just because it's, springtime does not mean that, our crock pots and Instant Pots have to go away and we pull them out for the winter and the fall and winter. So we got a spring green risotto. This is, again, the Instant Pot. You've got the function of the saute and the slow cooking. You've got all these wonderful veggies. And then, you got the risotto that cooks in with it. And then you've got a little bit of cheese to taste with that. Excuse me. And you've got the lemon juice. I love anything that calls for lemon because that adds just such a refreshment to it. All right. And then breakfast tacos. I love that idea. We got a question. Where can you find these recipes? You can find it on the Savory online database. And I'm going to throw in that link here in just 1 second. Because it's not savory.com. It sounds like it should be, but it's something else. So yeah, no problem. Give me two seconds here when I close out, because I'll put that link in the chat and then you can access it. But it's one of my favorite go-to places for all my recipe solutions. But breakfast tacos, I love this idea because I get stuck in breakfast ruts, cereal, smoothies and stuff like that. Not like I can't get excited about that kind of stuff, but I'm always looking to switch it up. But this is actually pretty cool. You got the eggs, you got, a couple other ingredients, and this is nice assembly too. So if you have a weekend with the family, you're looking to switch it up, or maybe have friends from out of town or family or something like that. This is something that's pretty nice. And I think this is a cool idea. So this is actually a slow cooker recipe, not to say they can't translate over to the Instant Pot. That's the nice thing. Instant Pot is interchangeable. Slow cooker's not so fancy, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm loyal to my slow cooker, but still cooks in 1.5 hours. Great brunch idea. And so, yeah, as you can see, pretty simple ingredients. Okay, so hopefully this has made everybody nice and hungry, especially right around the lunch hour. So other favorite creations, we have the hot bar, the oatmeal bar. It's actually pretty cool. You can make that something that's prepped overnight, good to go for the next morning. Again, I'm thinking for out of town guests, friends, family, maybe a fun little brunch idea or something like that, that you could have, because if you're feeding a crowd, you definitely want to whip out that, big appliance for that reason. Beans, dry to cooked with minimal effort. So that's kind of nice, especially if you're using beans for many different dishes. They're very versatile. Soups, you can use your favorite, chicken tortilla soup or garden vegetables or something like that. You got lots of that. And like I said, now's the time where, stuff is in season. And so if you're thinking about, I want to fill up my freezer for the fall and the winter, if you have a big freezer, you can start making that right now. Some people start to do that and, take advantage of the, more friendlier prices or the stuff that's seasonal and tastes a little bit better, in my opinion. Okay. And then the stews, beef pot roast with carrots and potatoes. That's one of my favorite things. And then dessert, even poached pears with cinnamon. There's also other, one of my favorite recipes in the crock pot is this, it's like a chocolate molten lava cake type of thing. It's absolutely delicious with a little, thing of ice cream. Amazing. All right, real quick, with the remaining time that we have, I wanted to talk about guiding stars and our How Good. These are two unique icons that you can find at Giant. And a lot of people don't know about them because they're kind of hard to find. All right, so guiding stars on the left, there we go, is our nutrition rating system, and it's found at the bottom right-hand corner on the shelf tag. So if you're looking at the price, which we know where to find that, usually at the bottom right-hand corner. Not every product will have guiding stars, so I just want to mention that. But it does guide customers to better for you products. And so what a product earns a star based on, so it's like, oh, so helpful. Yeah, that's why a lot of people are like, I had no idea this existed. So we're really trying to increase the visibility increase awareness of this because it's very helpful, like you had pointed out, like one of our audience members had said. So what earns a product a star versus not is based on credits and debits. So products might have a star because it's credited or has more ingredients that we need more of in our diet, like more fiber and more B vitamins and more omega-3s. And products might also have stars because there are debits against ingredients that we need less of in our diet, like less saturated fat and less sodium and less added sugar. So the nice part about guiding stars is that you can find guiding star rated products in every category at the grocery store or at your local Giants. Not every product, like I said, not every product will have a star rating, but every category will. So if you're in the frozen food section, it's a big section where people are like, oh, there's nothing good there. Everything's all, loaded with sodium and preservatives. That's not true. Thanks to guiding stars, you can find frozen food entrees that are better for you. So, you're not going to, probably because there's less sodium or less saturated fat compared to other varieties. In the cereal aisle, so many parents are like, oh, or even grandparents are like, I don't know, or my kids or my grandkids cereal, is that good for them? I don't know. Guiding stars will guide you to a better for you cereal, probably because there's more whole grains or there's less added sugar. In the dairy section, some people tell me that, oh, there's nothing but sugar in the dairy aisle. Well, not true. Thanks to guiding stars, you can find options that are better for you based on less saturated fat or less added sugar. So my call to action for you, my challenge for you is next time when you're at the grocery store or next time when you're even doing your online shopping, look for the stars. Maybe some of your favorite go-to products already had a guiding star. You just didn't know it. So anyway, I think that's kind of cool. Or next time when you're at the store, you're faced with two products that are maybe similar in nature. One has a star or two or three, one does not. It incentivizes getting products that have those, they're just healthier for you. Giant's reward for customers that purchase stars or star rated products is that you get 2 times the flex rewards. So that just means that you're able to redeem your flex points quicker at the gas pump. We all know what the prices are like these days at the gas pump or, at the gas station. So it just helps you reward or get, it's Giant's reward for, purchasing better for you products. Or you can have, certain dollars off at the gas or at the register or certain dollars off at specialty products. There we go. The one on the right is not a nutrition rating system. It is an impact rating powered by how good. It literally rates how good the product is on a social and environmental scale. So it takes into account the degree of processing or the use of herbicides or pesticides. There is no use. That's the answer. There's no use of herbicides or pesticides. There's, humane and ethical treatment towards animals and people. There's, fair trade. There's company transparency. So whether you're shopping for your health or the health of the planet, it's nice to know that Giant has these icons just to help people with their, with their informed decisions. So I just wanted to mention that, these are nice little shortcuts. It takes the labor or the work out of, people having to guess if, these products align with their, personal health and wellness goals. Okay. Okay. Are the stars marked only by Giant brand products or other? Oh, great question. So both actually. So these are found on Giant or private brand products as well as national brand products. Private brand like Giant owned products are usually on the actual box or the can or whatever you're looking at, but on the shelf tags of national brand products. Great question. So I know, yeah. So next time, look for on the shelf tag or look on actual, like if you're picking up a box of cereal or you're picking up a, can of oatmeal or something like that, you can look and see for the actual, guiding star. Oh, and I will let you know that Guiding Stars has undergone a logo change. So whether you see a little running figure with stars or you see an apple with the stars, it's all the same. So if you see a star, it just means it's nutrition related. If you see a leaf, it means it's how good. Great questions. All right, so we are almost done. I just wanted to mention, oh, my slides are transitioning a little slow. Handpicked, these our handpicked program is really just a vendor call out. It's just recognition of a product that is not necessary. Oops, sorry, too fast. It's not new to hit the shelves. In fact, you probably walk by these products all the time. So it's not a new thing, but it's just saying, hey, if you forgot about these, just a reminder, these are handpicked by the nutritionist because they're good for you. So we love our wheat thins. Again, I've known about wheat thins all my life, but I forgot about them actually up until recently. I thought, oh yeah, these are really good. Made with 100% whole grain, just good to have on my, rotation in my pantry. Another handpicked item is Veggies Made Great. Maybe you haven't seen these before. You have walked by them and not given them a chance. But this is a whole line of muffin and frittatas with, you guessed it, veggies as the first ingredient. This is found in the Nature's Promise section of the frozen food aisle. So Nature's Promise in the frozen food section. And this is a great way to sneak in a little more veggies, especially if maybe you have youngsters in the house that are just not so great in the veggie department, or maybe you yourself are not so great at getting veggies in. My personal favorite is the double chocolate muffin. You would think that the first ingredient would be chocolate. Actually, first ingredient is zucchini. You never would have known. So they've done a really good job with that. So I do encourage you, if you are looking to try something new. Oh, that's so funny. Somebody said that her daughter loves the Veggies Made Great Ninja ones. I don't believe that they are discontinued. Maybe certain varieties are not carried at certain stores. I know some of them are, it's like real estate, unless maybe, the company discontinued them. I don't know. I would hope not, but I know my colleague, her son loves the ninja kind too, because yeah, he's really into ninjas. So hopefully not. But yeah, I thought the ninja one was around. I know we just did a try something new thing not too long ago, and yeah, we called out the ninja kind too, because little kids love ninjas, don't they? Okay, hopefully that's not a thing. But yeah, the little kids, it's good. Glad that someone can attest that, yeah, the Veggies Made Great are pretty, fun for little kiddos to try. So great way to sneak in those veggies, like I said. So cool. All right. And then lastly, wonderful pistachios is another handpicked item for us. And again, pistachios, not brand new to hit the aisles, but something that I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about pistachios. I'm an almond person, but yeah, I was reminded, oh yeah, pistachios, great little snack to have, great for picnics. We are definitely in picnic season. And I forgot about just how tasty these guys are. And our whole line, or the whole line of wonderful pistachios, the chili roasted, honey roasted, all of them have guiding stars. Who would have thought? It's easy to go nuts on nuts. So just stick to the portion size, or stick to the recommended serving size. Great source of plant protein and heart healthy fats. That's why I love pistachios. All right. If you're looking to take advantage of other services that we have available, everything is 100% free. I know I had mentioned this, that, we're 10 nutritionists that we span the whole, greater Washington, D.C. area, the DMV pretty much. So we are accessible, virtually. You can listen to a podcast, you can join our Facebook page, and you can also sign up for any of our online classes that we have on constant rotation. So it has definitely been a pleasure sharing with you all of my little tricks of the trade with your Instapot, your crock pot. We already had some really good chat box activity. So with that being said, I'm going to open up the floor for more Q&A. I am going to go back and look at some of the questions that came in, make sure that I answer them appropriately. But now, since I stopped my share. Oh, good. I'm glad that you think that this is informative. I'm going to look through the chat and make sure that I did answer them appropriately, but keep them coming. You can also throw in questions in the Q&A box. But now I'm going to, for the remainder of our session, I'm going to turn it over to you all. If you have other questions, concerns, or we can also do a couple, we have a chance for myth busting. I mean, I know I hear of stuff all the time, headlines that we're inundated with. So, it doesn't even need to be Crockpot, Instapot related. So if you heard of something, you just have a question, by all means, feel free to ask it. No such thing as a silly question in my book. Oh, the link to the rest. Thank you for that. Let me put that here. It's thank you for that, recipe center giantfood.com. Thank you so much for that, Natalie. Okay. All right, there it is. It's recipecenter.giantfood.com. You would think it would be like savory. There would be the word savory somewhere in there, but it's not. So that is why. That is why I was like, let me put that in there. So thanks for that reminder. Okay. So yes, and I love that. And in that search engine, you can type in anything you want. If you like mushrooms, type in the word mushrooms, or if you're looking for a new quesadilla recipe, you can type in the word quesadilla. Pizza, there's all kinds of pizza recipes. Oh, you got your Instapot as a gift, but no instruction manual. So thank you for sharing that. I don't want to call out anybody's names because I know this is being, sorry, it's just says the last person's name. But yeah, I know it's being recorded and I just want to respect privacy. But yeah, somebody in the audience said that the Instant Pot did not have an instruction manual. I am so sorry. I guess I misspoke. I thought it did have an instruction manual, and that's what the notes had said that my colleague put together. I wonder if there's a possible, like, you can, I know everyone's saying Google it, but I wonder if there's like something online that has like more of like not like a hotline or anything, not a hotline, but like customer service or more like tutorial or something like that. So, oh, okay, we got somebody else in the audience who threw in a link about okay, a manual or something. Thank you for that. I'm not a very good resource with that Instant Pot. Like I said, I would be if I had one, but yeah. Okay, glad to see each other people helping each other out here. Okay, suggested size for an Instant Pot for a family of 3 adults with a small kitchen. I don't know if I have a good suggested size for that. I would say if there's 3 adults, and it's a small kitchen, I would probably, I don't know if anybody else in the audience wants to speak to that because I too have a small kitchen. But if there's 3 adults and, you know, I'm thinking about cost of food being what it is, you want to get multiple meals out of it. So I would say a large if there was room for it. Because I would want to try to get as many meals as possible, even like leftover lunches or even repurposing something. Like if I made, you know, like I said, a big batch of like meat, chili sauce or something like that, I would want to repurpose it. But if anybody wants to speak to that, if they have something similar, like a similar situation with small kitchen, you're limited on space, but you have adults and you're looking to get the biggest bang for your buck, I would say a large one. That would be my vote, but yeah. Okay. Okay, so somebody else in regards to the manual issue with the Instant Pot, there was somebody who just said there's a manual that came with it, but you had to order more manuals. Okay, good information. Okay, thank you for providing that feedback. Okay, then also some people are saying that this was informative. So, okay. And I can't forget to send everybody copies, the PDF for today. Okay, sorry, I'm just looking over the questions, make sure that we kind of touched on it. Okay, I think I got some questions, most of the questions answered. We still have about 3 minutes. I do see some people are pretty much signing off, so please feel free to do so. I do value you giving up your time. Thanks to those who threw questions in the chat. Always love the interaction. But yeah. All right. Well, I guess if no questions are coming through, yeah, you're welcome. I hope everyone has a safe and happy Memorial Day weekend. Looks like I think we're going to have some nice weather. I don't know if anyone's traveling, but I hope you have nice, safe travels. Don't forget to wear sunscreen. I know I'm that person, but yeah, you don't want to fry that skin. But yes, anyway, well, I just want to give a special thank you to Rabinder for organizing this. And yes, I believe she'll deal with the recording and everything in due time. But I will do my part and I will send everybody, or I'll send her the PDF. But yeah, all right. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks again for your participation. Thank you. That's really, I have gotten that before. That's really funny. You're not the first person to say that. Okay. Well, I will take that as a compliment. That's very nice. Okay. Well, I hope everyone has a fantastic, wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Hope to be back in the future for other sessions, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, have good eats over Memorial Day weekend. Eat lots of grilled veggies. Just kidding. Eat lots of delicious burgers and hot dogs and crab boils, whatever you guys are doing. So, okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to sign off. Have a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.